exactly what we deliver here every single week. Glass shatters. Ice cubes scatter across marble floors. A woman screams. Rebecca Carter stands frozen in Romano's restaurant, cranberry juice dripping from her cream maternity dress. 7 months pregnant and humiliated in front of Beverly Hills' elite dining crowd. The blonde woman who threw the drink, Sloane Whitmore, smirks triumphantly, her perfectly manicured hand still gripping the empty crystal tumbler. Maybe now you'll get the message. Rebecca, Sloane says, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent restaurant. Harrison doesn't want you anymore. He wants a real woman, not some bloated cow who can't even see her own feet. The words hit harder than the cold liquid. Rebecca's hand instinctively moves to her rounded belly, protecting the life growing inside. Her baby kicks as if sensing her distress. Around them, other diners whisper and point, their phones already out, recording what will surely become tomorrow's gossip. But what neither woman notices is the waitress cleaning nearby tables. Victoria Martinez keeps her head down, her hand instinctively moving toward the wire hidden beneath her black uniform. She's been undercover for 8 months, investigating money laundering through this exact restaurant. She never expected to witness her half-sister's public humiliation. Tori's jaw clenches as she watches Rebecca's face crumble. 22 years since their mother gave Tori up for adoption, 18 years since they'd reconnected as adults. And now, watching her sister being degraded by her millionaire husband's mistress, every protective instinct screams at her to break cover. The restaurant falls silent except for the soft jazz playing overhead. Harrison Carter, millionaire tech CEO and Rebecca's husband of 4 years, rushes toward his pregnant wife, but his guilt is written across his handsome face like a neon sign. Rebecca sees everything in that moment, the way Sloane touches his arm possessively, the way he doesn't immediately defend her, the way he glances around nervously at the watching crowd. Rebecca, honey, let me explain. Harrison starts, his voice shaking. Get away from me, Rebecca whispers, backing toward the exit. Her voice carries despite its softness, cutting through the restaurant's silence like a blade. Both of you? Sloane laughs, the sound sharp and cruel. Finally showing some backbone. Too bad it's too late. Rebecca turns and walks toward the exit, her dignity intact despite the stains on her dress. Every step feels like a mile. Behind her, she hears Harrison calling her name, but she doesn't stop. She can't stop. If she stops, she'll fall apart completely. The maitre d' rushes forward with towels, but Rebecca waves him away. The entire restaurant watches as the pregnant wife of one of California's most powerful tech executives flees in humiliation. Camera phones capture every moment. By tomorrow, this will be trending on social media. As Rebecca reaches the door, Tori makes a split-second decision that will change everything. She sets down her tray of dirty dishes and follows her sister outside, breaking her undercover protocol for the first time in 2 years of federal service. Ma'am, Tori calls softly as Rebecca fumbles for her car keys in the parking lot. Ma'am, wait. Rebecca turns, tears streaming down her cheeks. She doesn't recognize the woman in the waitress uniform with dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail and tired brown eyes. How could she? Tori has been living as Victoria Martinez for 8 months, complete with fake identification and a carefully constructed background. I saw what happened inside, Tori continues, her heart breaking at the pain in Rebecca's face. Are you all right? I'm fine. Rebecca lies, one hand pressed to her swollen belly where the baby continues to kick restlessly. No, you're not, Tori says gently. That was assault. You could press charges. Rebecca laughs bitterly, the sound more broken than amused. Against my husband's mistress. Do you know who he is, Harrison Carter of Carter Technologies? Money makes problems disappear in this town, especially problems like inconvenient wives. Tori's blood runs cold. For 8 months, she's been investigating Carter Technologies' connection to a sophisticated money laundering operation, funneling drug money through legitimate businesses. She knows things about Harrison Carter that would destroy him. She knows about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the $15 million that's passed through Romano's books in the past 6 months alone. But she can't tell Rebecca any of that without blowing her cover and endangering a federal investigation that's taken 2 years to build. An investigation that's supposed to culminate in arrest next week. Sometimes rich men aren't as untouchable as they think, Tori says carefully, watching Rebecca's face for any sign of recognition. Rebecca studies the waitress more closely. Something about her voice seems familiar, but she can't place it. The woman has kind eyes despite her tired appearance, and there's something about the way she stands confident, alert, like she's trained for danger. "Have we met before?" Rebecca asks. Tori's heart races. For a moment, she considers telling Rebecca everything right here in the parking lot, that she's her half-sister, that she's a federal agent, that Harrison is about to be arrested for money laundering, that Rebecca needs to get as far away from him as possible. Instead, she shakes her head. "I don't think so, but I work here most nights. Maybe you've seen me around." Rebecca nods slowly, still studying Tori's face. "Thank you for checking on me. Most people would just pretend they didn't see anything." "Nobody deserves to be treated like that," Tori replies, "especially not someone who's pregnant." Behind them, the restaurant door opens and Harrison emerges, his face flushed and angry. He looks around the parking lot until he spots Rebecca talking to the waitress. "Rebecca," he calls, jogging toward them. "We need to talk." "No," Rebecca says firmly, clicking her key fob. Her Range Rover chirps as the doors unlock. "We really don't." She slides into the driver's seat, her movements awkward with her advanced pregnancy. Through the open window, she looks at Tori one more time. "Thank you again." "Be careful," Tori says, and something in her tone makes Rebecca pause. "What do you mean?" before Tori can answer. Harrison reaches them. "Who are you?" he demands, looking at Tori suspiciously. "Just a concerned employee, sir," Tori replies, lowering her eyes submissively. "I wanted to make sure your wife was okay after the incident inside." Harrison's expression softens slightly. "Right. Well, she's fine. This is between my wife and me." "Of course, sir." Tori steps back. "I should get back to work." She turns and walks back toward the restaurant, feeling Harrison's eyes on her back. As she reaches the door, she hears Rebecca's Range Rover start up and pull out of the parking lot, inside Romano's. The dinner crowd is buzzing with excitement over the drama they've just witnessed. Sloane sits at the bar, sipping champagne and basking in the attention from other patrons who want to hear her version of events. Tori returns to clearing tables, her mind racing. Her cover is still intact, but barely. She can't risk another encounter like that. But she also can't abandon Rebecca. Not when she's in danger and doesn't even know it. Her earpiece crackles softly with Detective Ray Sullivan's voice. "Martinez, what the hell just happened? You broke position." Tori moves into the service corridor where she can speak without being overheard. "The pregnant woman who got assaulted, she's my sister." Silence on the other end. Then, "Jesus Christ, Tori, this complicates everything. If she's married to our target—" "She doesn't know anything about his business," Tori interrupts. "She's innocent in all this." "Nobody married to Harrison Carter is innocent," Sullivan replies grimly. "Not anymore. The net is closing. Martinez, we go live with arrests in 72 hours. Can you handle this?" Tori watches through the service window as Harrison paces near the bar, his phone pressed to his ear. His body language is tense, agitated. Whatever conversation he's having, it's not going well. "I can handle it," she says, but as she returns to work, overhearing Harrison's phone conversation, her blood runs cold. "Move up the timeline," he's saying in a voice barely above a whisper. "I want everything transferred by Friday. And Ray, do something about the waitress who saw too much tonight, the one who followed my wife outside. I don't like loose ends." Tori's hand freezes on the glass she's wiping. He's talking about her, somehow, in the space of 30 minutes. She's gone from being invisible, help to a potential threat. Her federal training kicks in, and she forces herself to keep working normally while her mind calculates odds and exit strategies. The baby Rebecca is carrying will be born into a world where her father is either dead or in federal prison. And now Tori has to choose between maintaining her cover to complete the investigation or protecting her sister from a man who's already shown he's willing to eliminate problems permanently. As she loads glasses into the dishwasher, Tori makes her choice. Family comes first. It always has and it always will. The investigation will have to adapt, because Rebecca Carter is not going to become another casualty in her husband's criminal empire. Rebecca sits in her Range Rover outside the Beverly Hills mansion she shares with Harrison, unable to face going inside. The house looks different now, the towering iron gates, the marble fountain, the perfectly manicured gardens that cost more to maintain each month than most people make in a year. All of it feels like a beautiful prison. Her phone buzzes incessantly with text messages from Harrison, each more desperate than the last. Baby, please come home so we can talk. It's not what you think. Sloan means nothing to me. You're carrying my child. Doesn't that mean anything? Rebecca deletes each message without responding. Her hands shake as she thinks about the scene at Romano's. The humiliation wasn't just about the drink or the cruel words. It was about the way Harrison had looked at her like she was an inconvenience, a problem to be managed rather than his wife. She thinks about the waitress who'd shown her such unexpected kindness. There had been something familiar about her, something that tugged at Rebecca's memory, but she couldn't place it. 20 minutes later, she finally drives through the gates. The house is blazing with lights. Harrison's Porsche is already in the circular driveway, along with a black Mercedes she doesn't recognize. Inside, she finds Harrison pacing in his mahogany-paneled study, a glass of scotch in his hand. He's changed out of his dinner jacket into jeans and a sweater, but he still looks agitated. Another man sits in one of the leather chairs, Marcus Webb, Harrison's business partner and the owner of Romano's restaurant. Rebecca, Harrison says, relief flooding his face. Thank God you're home. We need to talk. About your pregnant wife or your 26-year-old girlfriend? Rebecca asks, not acknowledging Marcus's presence. Marcus clears his throat. Maybe I should go. No, stay, Harrison says sharply. Then, to Rebecca, it's not what you think. She threw a drink at me, Harrison, at your pregnant wife, in public. Rebecca's voice breaks despite her efforts to stay strong. In front of everyone we know. How long has this been going on? Harrison's silence stretches too long. Rebecca watches his face, seeing the calculation behind his eyes as he decides how much truth he can afford to tell her. 6 months, he finally admits. Rebecca does the math quickly. You started sleeping with her 2 weeks after we announced the pregnancy. Again, Harrison's silence is answer enough. Rebecca sinks into a chair, one hand on her belly. The baby is quiet now, as if sensing the tension in the room. I never meant for it to happen, Harrison says. She was working on some consulting projects, and we got close. It doesn't mean anything. Rebecca, you and the baby, you're my family. Your family, Rebecca repeats hollowly. The family you humiliated in front of half of Beverly Hills tonight. Marcus shifts uncomfortably in his chair. Maybe we should discuss business later. Harrison. What business? Rebecca asks, looking between the two men. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. What business is so urgent it can't wait until tomorrow? Harrison and Marcus exchange a look that doesn't escape Rebecca's notice. In 4 years of marriage, she's learned to read her husband's expressions. This one means danger. Just some issues with the restaurant's books, Marcus says smoothly. Nothing that concerns you. But Rebecca has spent years in marketing. She knows when people are lying to her. Right, of course. Because the little pregnant wife shouldn't worry her head about business matters. Her phone rings, the sound sharp in the tense room. She doesn't recognize the number. Mrs. Carter. The voice is unfamiliar, carefully disguised. This is someone who cares about your safety. You need to leave your house. Tonight, your husband is not who you think he is. Rebecca's blood turns to ice. Who is this? The waitress from Romano's. My name is Victoria Martinez. Rebecca, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm a federal agent, and I'm also your half-sister. The phone slips from Rebecca's numb fingers, clattering to the hardwood floor. Harrison and Marcus both turn at the sound. Rebecca, Harrison asks, what's wrong? Who was that? Rebecca stares at her husband, really seeing him for the first time in months. The late meetings that started 8 months ago. The encrypted phone calls he takes in his study with the door locked. The way he always pays for everything in cash now, even large purchases. The new security system he had installed last month with cameras everywhere. She picks up the phone with trembling hands. The line is still connected. That's impossible, she whispers. Mom gave me up when you were 8. Victoria's voice continues urgently. I found you when you turned 25. Remember we met at that coffee shop in Santa Monica? You were wearing a blue dress with tiny flowers. You cried when I told you who I was. Rebecca's world tilts. She remembers that day 5 years ago. A young woman had approached her, claiming to be her half-sister. They'd talked for hours, sharing memories of their mother, filling in the gaps of each other's lives. But they'd agreed to keep their relationship quiet. Rebecca's wealthy lifestyle and Victoria's work in law enforcement made it safer that way. Victoria, she breathes. I've been undercover for 8 months, investigating your husband's company, Victoria continues. Rebecca, tomorrow morning, federal agents are going to arrest Harrison for money laundering. $15 million has moved through Carter Technologies and Romano's restaurant. You're in danger. The words don't make sense. Harrison sells software. He donates to children's hospitals. He talks to her belly every night, telling their unborn child about the adventures they'll have together. You're lying, Rebecca says, but her voice lacks conviction. Romano's restaurant isn't just where his mistress humiliated you tonight, Victoria says. It's the hub of a money laundering operation. Harrison isn't just cheating on you, Rebecca. He's a criminal. Harrison appears in the doorway of the study, his face pale. He's heard enough of the conversation to understand what's happening. Who are you talking to? He asks, his voice dangerously quiet. Rebecca stares at her husband, really looks at him. The handsome face she fell in love with, now hard with calculation. The gentle hands that caress her belly, now clenched into fists. The man who promised to love and protect her, now exposed as someone she's never really known. The DEA, she says quietly. I'm talking to the DEA. Harrison's face goes white. Behind him, Marcus Webb stands up from his chair, his hand moving inside his jacket. Rebecca, Harrison says carefully, hang up the phone. No, she replies, backing toward the doorway. I don't think I will. Hang up the phone, or Marcus and I will have to handle this situation ourselves. The threat is clear. Rebecca sees the calculation in Marcus's eyes, the way he's positioned himself between her and the door. These men are preparing to hurt her and her unborn child. Rebecca, get out of there now. Victoria's voice crackles through the phone. I'm coming to get you. You can't, Rebecca whispers, still staring at Harrison. You'll blow your cover. The investigation is over anyway. We have enough evidence. Your safety matters more than anything else. Harrison lunges for the phone, but Rebecca is faster. 7 months pregnant, and she's still faster than her millionaire husband. She dodges past him and runs for the stairs, her maternity dress flowing behind her. Rebecca, Harrison shouts. You don't understand what's happening here. She makes it to the master bedroom and slams the door, turning the lock just as Harrison pounds against it from the other side. Her hands shake as she tries to think clearly. Victoria said she was coming, but how long would that take? And what would Harrison and Marcus do in the meantime? Rebecca, listen to me. Harrison calls through the door, his voice switching to the gentle tone he uses when he wants something. I can explain everything. The money was for us, for our future, for the baby's college fund. I was trying to set us up for life. But Rebecca remembers things now with horrible clarity. The way Harrison insisted they combine all their accounts when they got married, but kept his business finances completely separate. How he always seemed to know where she was going, who she was seeing, what she was buying. The GPS tracker he'd insisted on putting in her car for safety. The new security system with cameras in every room except his study. She's been living in a beautiful cage, and she never even realized it. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. If you don't cooperate, accidents happen to pregnant women all the time. We know where you are. We know where your sister works. Emily. Marcus Webb, Harrison's business partner, the one who owns Romano's restaurant, the one who was just downstairs, talking about handling situations. Rebecca sinks onto the bed, her hand on her belly. The baby kicks hard, as if sensing her fear. She's trapped in her own home by her own husband, and the only person who can help her is the sister she's barely spoken to in 2 years. The pounding on the door stops. Rebecca hears Harrison's voice through the wood, but he's not talking to her anymore. She knows everything, he's saying into his phone. The DEA agent, the investigation, all of it. We need to activate the contingency plan. Tonight, Rebecca closes her eyes and thinks about the waitress from Romano's. The kind stranger who'd shown concern for her welfare. Her half-sister Victoria, who'd somehow found her way into the middle of a federal investigation into Rebecca's own husband. Family isn't always about shared genetics or legal documents. Sometimes it's about who shows up when your world is falling apart. And right now, Victoria Martinez is the only family Rebecca has left. Victoria Martinez races through the winding streets of Beverly Hills, her decade-old Honda Civic looking absurdly out of place among the Maseratis and Bentleys. Her federal training wars with her sister instincts as she navigates the maze of exclusive neighborhoods where every house costs more than most people make in a lifetime. She calls Detective Sullivan on her encrypted phone. "I need backup at the Carter residence. Now." "Negative. Martinez. We stick to the plan. Arrests happen at dawn, just like we discussed." "Ray, they know she knows. She's 7 months pregnant and trapped in that house with 2 armed men who've already killed to protect their operation." "Then you better hope your sister is smarter than her husband thinks she is," Sullivan replies grimly. "I can't authorize backup without compromising the entire investigation. Too many moving parts, too many other agencies involved. You knew the risks when you went undercover." Victoria's jaw clenches. She's worked with Sullivan for 3 years, and she knows he's not heartless. But federal investigations move like battleships, slow, methodical, and nearly impossible to change course once they're in motion. 72 hours, Martinez," Sullivan continues. "That's when we move. Can your sister stay safe for 72 hours? She's not staying anywhere. I'm getting her out tonight. If you blow your cover, we lose everything. 2 years of investigation, 15 million in traced funds, connections to 3 other major operations. You'll save 1 woman and let dozens of other families get destroyed by the drugs this money is laundering." Victoria knows he's right, but she also knows that Rebecca is carrying her niece or nephew, and that Harrison Carter has already demonstrated he's willing to eliminate problems permanently. "I have to try," she says. Meanwhile, at the Carter mansion, Rebecca searches through Harrison's belongings with methodical precision. If he's really a criminal, there has to be evidence somewhere in their bedroom. She finds it in his nightstand drawer, hidden behind a false back she discovers by accident. A loaded 9mm pistol, 2 fake passports with Harrison's photo but different names, $50,000 in cash, and plane tickets to the Cayman Islands dated for tomorrow. Tomorrow, less than 24 hours from now. Her husband was planning to disappear, presumably with Sloan and their stolen millions. What would have happened to Rebecca and the baby? Would Harrison have taken them along, forcing them into a life on the run? Or would they have become loose ends to be tied up permanently? Her laptop is still logged into Harrison's computer network. Another piece of his surveillance she'd never questioned. She starts photographing financial records, offshore account numbers, communications between Harrison and Marcus Webb discussing money transfers and problem elimination. The master bedroom door is solid oak, but she can hear voices downstairs. Harrison and Marcus, plus at least 2 other men based on the different tones. They're arguing about something, their voices rising and falling in urgent whispers. Rebecca finds Harrison's emergency go bag hidden in the back of their walk-in closet. More cash, more fake documents, and a detailed map of Mexico with specific routes highlighted. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment operation. This is an escape plan that's been months in the making. Her phone rings. Victoria again. "I'm 5 minutes away," Victoria says without preamble. "What's your situation?" "Locked in the master bedroom. Harrison has a gun, fake passports, tickets to the Cayman Islands for tomorrow. I found evidence of the money laundering on his computer. Send me everything you found. Email address is vmartinez@thefederalbureau.gov. And Rebecca, stay away from the windows. If they think you're trying to escape, they might decide to end this quickly." Rebecca photographs screen after screen of incriminating evidence, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Pregnancy has changed her in ways she's only beginning to understand. She's not the same woman who used to defer to Harrison in all things, who trusted his judgment over her own instincts. She's a mother now, even before her daughter is born. And mothers protect their children, no matter the cost. Her phone buzzes with another text from Marcus Webb. "Your sister thinks she's clever, but we know exactly who she is. Agent Victoria Martinez, DEA, 28 years old, Lives alone in apartment 4B at 1247 Riverside Drive. Accidents happen to federal agents too. Rebecca's blood turns to ice. They know about Victoria, which means the federal investigation has been compromised somehow. She calls Victoria immediately. They know who you are. They know where you live. This is a trap. I know, Victoria replies calmly. I've been made for at least an hour, but that doesn't change anything. I'm not leaving you alone with those men. Victoria, if they kill a federal agent, they're already planning to kill a federal agent, and a pregnant woman, and anyone else who threatens their operation. Victoria's voice is hard now, professional. The only question is whether we let them do it on their terms or ours. Rebecca hears car doors slamming outside. Through the bedroom window, she sees black SUVs surrounding the property. But are they federal agents coming to help, or more of Harrison's associates coming to ensure her silence? The house goes dark. Harrison has cut the main power, leaving only emergency lighting in the hallways. In the master bedroom, Rebecca is plunged into near darkness. Her phone rings one more time. Harrison's voice, but different now, cold and calculating, like a stranger wearing her husband's voice. Rebecca, you have two choices, he says. Come downstairs right now, and we'll disappear together. We'll raise our child somewhere beautiful and safe, far from all this mess, or stay upstairs and learn what happens to people who threaten my business. Through the phone, she can hear Marcus Webb in the background. Just eliminate the problem. Harrison, both problems. Make it look like a home invasion gone wrong. There's a third choice, Rebecca says, her voice steady despite her terror. The one where I take you down. She hangs up and immediately calls Victoria. How close are you? Pulling into your neighborhood now. Rebecca, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't try to be a hero. Professional backup is coming, but not for at least 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Rebecca looks at the emergency cash in Harrison's go bag. They're not going to wait 30 minutes. Then we better hope 30 minutes is enough. The line goes dead. Rebecca is alone in the dark with her unborn child, surrounded by men who view her as nothing more than a problem to be solved. But she's not the same helpless woman who fled Romano's restaurant in humiliation a few hours ago. She's discovered reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, and she has something Harrison and Marcus Webb don't have. She has a federal agent for a sister, and Victoria Martinez has never failed to complete a mission. The sound of breaking glass echoes through the house. The siege has begun. Victoria picks the lock on the Carter mansion's back door with tools from her DEA kit, her movements silent and efficient. The house is a maze of marble and shadows, but she studied the floor plans as part of her investigation. She knows every entrance, every exit, every room where a criminal might try to make a stand. The mansion feels like a mausoleum in the darkness. Emergency lighting casts eerie shadows on expensive artwork and furniture that costs more than most people's houses. Victoria moves through the kitchen and service areas, staying low and quiet. She can hear voices from Harrison's study, at least 4 different men, arguing in hushed but urgent tones. She recognizes Harrison's voice and Marcus Webb's, but the other 2 are unfamiliar. Probably professional cleaners brought in to handle the Rebecca problem. The wife knows about Romano's, the federal investigation. Everything, Marcus is saying. She's got evidence, photos, probably already sent them to someone. Then we eliminate the problem, another voice replies, flat and emotionless. Make it look like a home invasion gone wrong. Pregnant woman tries to defend herself, gets killed in the struggle. Happens more often than people think. She's carrying my child, Harrison says, but his voice lacks conviction. You should have thought of that before you married someone who could threaten the operation, the professional voice continues. Marcus says there's a federal agent involved too. The waitress from the restaurant. Victoria's jaw clenches. These men are discussing murder like it's a business transaction. Rebecca never knew anything about Harrison's criminal activities before tonight. She was an innocent victim, just like all the families destroyed by the drugs Harrison's money laundering operation enabled. Upstairs, Rebecca has found Harrison's laptop still logged into his business network. She photographs screen after screen of financial records, offshore accounts, communications between Harrison and criminal organizations from Miami to Mexico City. The scope of the operation is staggering. Carter Technologies isn't just laundering money for local dealers. They're providing financial services for international cartels. She sends everything to the email address Victoria provided, her hands shaking but steady. Each photo could put Harrison away for life. Each document represents another nail in the coffin of their marriage, their life together, the future she'd imagined for their child. The bedroom door explodes inward without warning. Marcus Webb stands there with two other men, all armed with professional-grade weapons. They're wearing tactical gear and night vision goggles, like soldiers prepared for war. "Mrs. Carter," Marcus says politely, as if he's not holding a gun. "Time to come with us." Rebecca raises Harrison's 9mm pistol with steady hands. 7 months pregnant, and her aim is rock solid. "I don't think so." The standoff lasts 30 seconds that feel like 30 minutes. Then gunshots explode through the house, but not from Rebecca's weapon. Victoria has engaged the men downstairs, her federal training finally put to lethal use. Rebecca uses the distraction to escape through the master bedroom's balcony door. 7 months pregnant, climbing down from a second-story balcony using the ivy trellis Harrison had installed for aesthetic purposes. She'd laughed at his obsession with architectural details when they moved in. Now those details might save her life. The baby kicks hard as Rebecca makes her slow, careful descent. "Stay with me," she whispers to her unborn daughter. "Just a little longer." In the backyard, she finds Harrison waiting by the pool house, his own gun drawn. The emergency lighting from the house casts strange shadows across his familiar features, making him look like a stranger. "I really hoped it wouldn't come to this," he says, and for a moment he sounds like the man she married. "You were going to kill me," Rebecca states flatly. "Your pregnant wife." "I was going to save you," Harrison replies. "Take you somewhere safe where the DEA couldn't touch us. We could have raised our daughter on a beach in Costa Rica with more money than we could spend in 3 lifetimes. By murdering the federal agent investigating you?" Harrison's face twists with something that might be regret. "How do you know about?" Then understanding dawns in his eyes. "The waitress. She's the agent. And somehow you knew to trust her." "She's my sister," Rebecca says simply. The revelation hits Harrison like a physical blow. All the color drains from his face as the pieces fall into place. "Your half-sister, the one you met 5 years ago, the one who works in law enforcement. My sister who watched you humiliate me tonight, who's been building a case against you for 8 months, who risked her career and her life to save me." Behind Harrison, Victoria emerges from the house, her Federal Service weapon drawn and trained on his center mass. Her black waitress uniform is torn and bloodstained, but her hands are steady. "Harrison Carter," she announces in the tone she's been trained to use for arrests. "You're under arrest for money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempted murder of a federal witness." Harrison's gun wavers between Rebecca and Victoria. His face cycles through emotions: anger, fear, desperation, and finally a cold calculation that Rebecca has never seen before. "If I can't have my family," he says, his voice empty of all warmth. "Nobody can." He swings the gun toward Rebecca's pregnant belly. 2 shots ring out simultaneously in the Beverly Hills night. Harrison Carter, millionaire tech CEO and criminal mastermind, crumples beside his own swimming pool. Victoria's federal training proved faster than desperation. Rebecca collapses onto a pool chair, her hand pressed to her belly. "The baby one is fine," Victoria assures her, quickly checking for injuries while keeping her weapon trained on Harrison's motionless form. "But we need to get you to the hospital. Stress like this can trigger early labor." Sirens wail in the distance finally. Sullivan's backup arrives along with local law enforcement and paramedics. Marcus Webb is arrested trying to flee through the kitchen, his hands zip-tied behind his back. The 2 professional killers didn't survive Victoria's tactical response in the house. Harrison survives his wounds, but barely. He'll face trial from a hospital bed, then spend the rest of his life in federal prison. As paramedics load Rebecca into an ambulance, Victoria rides beside her, holding her sister's hand. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you earlier," Victoria says. "About who I was, what I was investigating." "You saved my life," Rebecca replies weakly. "You saved both our lives." "That's what sisters do." At Cedars-Sinai Hospital, Dr. Emily Davidson confirms what Victoria suspected: the stress triggered early labor contractions. But both mother and baby are stable with proper medical intervention. "You're incredibly lucky," Dr. Davidson tells Rebecca as Victoria holds her hand. A few more hours of that stress level, and we might have been looking at premature delivery or worse. My sister's timing has always been excellent, Rebecca says with a weak smile. 3 days later, Rebecca testifies via video link from her hospital bed while Victoria sits beside her, no longer in disguise. The federal prosecutor estimates that Harrison's testimony, combined with the evidence Rebecca photographed, will bring down money laundering operations in 6 states and 3 countries. What happens now? Rebecca asks after the video conference ends. Now you heal, Victoria replies. You figure out what kind of life you want to build for yourself and your daughter. Our daughter, Rebecca corrects, Emma Victoria Carter. I've already decided on the name. Victoria's eyes fill with tears. You can't name her after me. I'm just the sister who showed up late to the party. You're the sister who showed up when it mattered most. Outside Rebecca's hospital window, Beverly Hills continues its relentless pursuit of wealth and status. But inside the room, 2 sisters who found each other twice, once as adults choosing family, once as allies choosing justice, begin planning a very different kind of future. The kind built on truth instead of lies, on love instead of money, on family that chooses to show up when the world falls apart. Some endings are really beginnings in disguise. 2 weeks later, Rebecca sits in a downtown Los Angeles courtroom, her hand resting on her rounded belly as she watches her millionaire husband be sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Harrison Carter, once featured on the covers of business magazines, now wears an orange jumpsuit and shackles. The federal prosecutor reads the charges: money laundering, conspiracy, attempted murder of a federal witness, and domestic terrorism related to his cartel connections. The evidence Rebecca photographed from his computer proved crucial in connecting Carter Technologies to criminal organizations across 3 countries. This defendant used his legitimate business as a front for one of the most sophisticated money laundering operations we've ever encountered, the prosecutor states. His actions enabled drug trafficking that destroyed countless families and communities. When his pregnant wife discovered his crimes, he attempted to have her murdered to protect his criminal enterprise. Harrison's defense attorney tries to paint him as a man who made poor choices under pressure, but the evidence is overwhelming. $15 million traced through Romano's restaurant, communications with known cartel leaders, plans to eliminate federal witnesses, the fake passports and escape route to the Cayman Islands. When given the chance to speak before sentencing, Harrison looks directly at Rebecca. I never wanted any of this to happen. I thought I was protecting our family's future. Rebecca stares back at the man she once loved, seeing him clearly for the first time. You weren't protecting our family. You were protecting your money. The judge sentences Harrison to 25 years without possibility of parole. Marcus Webb receives 15 years for his role in the conspiracy. The other members of their operation are either dead or facing similar sentences. Victoria, back to her regular DEA assignment, meets Rebecca outside the courthouse. How do you feel? Wish relieved, Rebecca answers honestly, and terrified. I've been Mrs. Harrison Carter for 4 years. I don't know who I am without that identity. You're Rebecca, Victoria says simply. You're going to be a mother. You're my sister. Those things matter more than any millionaire husband ever could. They drive to Rebecca's new apartment in Santa Monica, a modest 2-bedroom place near the beach that costs less per month than Harrison used to spend on wine. Rebecca sold the Beverly Hills mansion and most of its contents, keeping only items with sentimental value and donating the rest to charity. The insurance settlement from Harrison's legitimate business assets provides enough money for Rebecca to live comfortably without working, but she's already planning to restart her marketing consultancy. She needs purpose beyond just being a wealthy man's wife. What happened to Sloan? Victoria asks as they unpack boxes in the nursery. Rebecca smiles grimly. Turns out throwing drinks at pregnant women while your boyfriend runs a criminal enterprise is bad for your social climbing career. Last I heard, she's working retail in Phoenix, trying to avoid the media attention. They work together assembling a crib. Both sisters awkward with the instructions but determined to figure it out. It's the kind of normal domestic activity Rebecca never thought she'd share with Victoria. Do you regret any of it? Victoria asks. Marrying him. The life you had. Rebecca considers the question seriously. I regret not seeing who he really was sooner. I regret that I was so isolated I didn't have anyone to talk to when things felt wrong. but I don't regret the experiences that led me here. She gestures around the small apartment with its second-hand furniture and ocean view. This feels more like home than that mansion ever did. Emma kicks hard, as if agreeing with her mother's assessment. Rebecca's due date is still 6 weeks away, but Dr. Davidson wants to monitor her closely due to the trauma she experienced. Have you thought about what you'll tell Emma about her father? Victoria asks gently. The truth, Rebecca replies without hesitation. Age-appropriate truth, but the truth nonetheless, that he made choices that hurt people, including us, that sometimes people we love disappoint us, but that doesn't mean love itself is wrong. Victoria nods approvingly. That's very wise. I learned from the best, Rebecca says, squeezing her sister's hand. Thank you for showing up when my world fell apart. That's what family does. As the sun sets through the apartment's west-facing windows, the two sisters sit on Rebecca's new couch, planning a future neither of them could have imagined a month ago. Victoria will transfer to the Los Angeles field office to be closer to Rebecca and Emma. Rebecca will rebuild her career on her own terms, using skills she'd forgotten she possessed. Rebecca's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your testimony. Harrison had business partners in very high places. Some of them aren't happy about the attention you've brought to their operations. Watch your back. Rebecca shows Victoria the message without comment. Her sister's expression hardens with familiar determination. Looks like we're not done yet, Victoria says, already reaching for her service weapon out of habit. Good, Rebecca replies, surprising them both. I'm tired of being a victim. If Harrison's associates want to threaten my family, they'll discover that pregnancy hormones make women very dangerous when properly motivated. Victoria laughs, recognizing something fierce and new in her sister's voice. Emma is going to have one hell of a mother. And one hell of an aunt, Rebecca adds. Outside their window, the Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly toward the horizon. It's the same ocean Rebecca used to watch from the Beverly Hills mansion, but the view looks completely different now. Less pristine, more real, full of possibilities instead of limitations. Some stories end with justice served and bad guys in prison. Others end with the understanding that justice is an ongoing process, and family is something you choose every single day. Rebecca Carter, no longer the wife of a millionaire, but still a woman of considerable strength, chooses family. She chooses truth. She chooses the kind of life where throwing drinks at pregnant women has consequences, where federal agents are also sisters, and where love means showing up when someone's world explodes. Emma Victoria Carter will be born into that world in 6 weeks. She'll grow up knowing that her mother and aunt are the kind of women who don't back down from threats, who protect each other, and who understand that real wealth has nothing to do with money. And if Harrison's former associates want to test that theory, they'll quickly discover that threatening a pregnant woman and her DEA sister is a very poor life choice. Some lessons are learned the hard way. Others are taught at the end of a federal service weapon by women who've already survived the worst and come out stronger. The Carter women are ready for whatever comes next. 6 weeks later, Emma Victoria Carter enters the world at exactly 3:37 in the morning, screaming her displeasure at being removed from her warm, comfortable environment. She weighs 6 pounds, 4 ounces, and has her mother's determined chin and her aunt's alert, intelligent eyes. Victoria holds her niece for the first time while Rebecca recovers from delivery, marveling at the tiny perfect fingers and the way Emma seems to study everything with serious concentration. She's got your suspicious nature, Rebecca says weakly from her hospital bed. Already checking everyone out like they might be criminals? That's a survival trait in our family, Victoria replies, not taking her eyes off Emma's face. She's going to need it. Dr. Davidson pronounces both mother and baby healthy, with no complications from the stress Rebecca endured during her pregnancy. You've got a fighter here, she tells Rebecca. Strong heartbeat, excellent reflexes, and she's already trying to lift her head. Very advanced for a newborn. Must be the adrenaline, Rebecca jokes. I spent the last 2 months of pregnancy running from assassins and testifying against cartels. She's probably been practicing her escape routes since the second trimester. They bring Emma home to the Santa Monica apartment that's become a real home in ways the Beverly Hills mansion never was. Rebecca has furnished it with pieces that mean something to her rather than pieces that impress visitors. The nursery overlooks the ocean, and Emma seems fascinated by the sound of waves through the open window. Victoria has officially transferred to the Los Angeles DEA field office and found an apartment 3 blocks away. She visits every day, bringing groceries or take-out dinner, helping with late-night feedings, and gradually learning to be an aunt. "I never thought I wanted kids," Victoria admits one evening as she changes Emma's diaper with practiced efficiency. "My job seems incompatible with family life, but this isn't so bad." "Wait until she starts walking," Rebecca warns. "Then you'll understand why parents need to be in better shape than federal agents." They've settled into a routine that works for both of them. Rebecca is slowly building her marketing consultancy from home, taking on clients who appreciate her discretion and her hard-won understanding of crisis management. Word has gotten around about her situation, and several high-profile women have sought her services specifically because they trust someone who survived public humiliation and come out stronger. Victoria's new assignment involves investigating human trafficking operations, work that feels more meaningful than financial crimes. She comes home most evenings with stories she can't share, and tension she works off by running on the beach or teaching Rebecca self-defense techniques. "You never know when you might need to protect Emma," Victoria explains as she shows Rebecca how to break someone's grip on her arm. "Single mothers are vulnerable targets for all kinds of predators." "I'm not planning to be single forever," Rebecca says, practicing the movement until it becomes automatic. "But I'm definitely going to be more careful about who I trust." They don't talk about the threatening messages that have continued sporadically over the past few months. Harrison's conviction made headlines, and his former associates aren't pleased about the attention. Victoria has contacted security specialists about upgrading the apartment's locks and installing a discreet alarm system. Rebecca has also purchased a 9mm pistol, the same model she took from Harrison's nightstand that night. She practices at a shooting range twice a week, becoming proficient enough to qualify for a concealed carry permit. "I spent 4 years being protected by someone who turned out to be my biggest threat," she explains to Victoria. "Never again. If someone wants to hurt Emma or me, they'll have to work for it." Emma thrives in her first months of life, hitting every developmental milestone early and showing signs of the intelligence that runs in her family. She sleeps through the night at 8 weeks, starts smiling at 10 weeks, and attempts to roll over at 12 weeks. "She's going to be trouble," Dr. Davidson observes during a routine checkup. "Babies this alert and physically advanced usually are. You might want to start childproofing now, before she figures out how to escape her crib." Rebecca and Victoria exchange knowing looks. Escape artistry seems to be a family trait. At Emma's 6-month checkup, Dr. Davidson asks about Rebecca's emotional state and support system. "Single motherhood can be isolating, especially after traumatic experiences. Are you getting help when you need it?" "I have the best help possible," Rebecca says, watching Victoria make faces at Emma during her examination. "My sister is a federal agent, an expert in personal security, and she's completely devoted to protecting Emma and me. I feel safer now than I ever did when I was married." It's true. The modest apartment with its upgraded security features feels more secure than the Beverly Hills mansion, with all its cameras and alarms. Victoria's presence provides both practical protection and emotional support that Harrison never offered. They celebrate Emma's first Christmas quietly. Just the 3 of them, plus a small tree decorated with handmade ornaments and pictures of Emma's first months. It's nothing like the elaborate holiday parties Rebecca used to host as Harrison's wife, and it's infinitely better. "Next year she'll be walking," Victoria says, holding Emma on her lap as they open presents. "We'll have to chase her around the tree." "Next year we might be somewhere else entirely," Rebecca replies. "I've been thinking about expanding the consultancy, maybe opening an office in San Francisco or Seattle, somewhere with better schools and more opportunities." "Wherever you go, I go," Victoria says simply. "Emma needs her aunt, and I need my family." They sit together on the couch, Emma babbling contentedly between them, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. It's the kind of moment Rebecca used to think she wanted with Harrison, peaceful, domestic, filled with love and possibility. But this is better because it's real. There are no secrets, no lies, no dangerous criminal enterprises lurking beneath the surface. Just 2 sisters who found each other, chose each other, and built a life together around a baby who represents their hope for the future. Emma reaches for the Christmas lights with chubby fingers, and both women laugh at her determined expression. She's definitely going to be trouble, but she's their trouble. And Rebecca and Victoria have proven they can handle anything as long as they face it together. The threatening messages stopped coming months ago, probably because Harrison's former associates have bigger problems to worry about, now that their money laundering network has been exposed. But even if new threats emerge, the Carter women are ready. They've survived the worst that criminal millionaires and federal investigations can throw at them. Whatever comes next, they'll handle it the same way they've handled everything else together, with fierce determination and absolutely no patience for anyone who threatens their family. Emma Victoria Carter is going to grow up knowing that family means showing up, that strength comes from truth instead of money, and that the most dangerous people in the world are women who've decided to protect the ones they love. Some lessons are worth passing on to the next generation. 2 years later, Rebecca stands in the lobby of Romano's restaurant, which has been completely renovated and reopened under new management. The FBI returned the property to the previous owners after Marcus Webb's conviction, and they've transformed it into a family-friendly establishment that bears no resemblance to its former incarnation as a money laundering front. Emma, now a precocious 2-year-old with her mother's determination and her aunt's keen observational skills, holds Rebecca's hand and stares around with obvious skepticism. "This is where Mommy met Aunt Tori?" Emma asks in her clear, precise voice. She speaks in complete sentences and has a vocabulary that amazes everyone who meets her. "This is where everything started," Rebecca confirms, "where I learned that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things." They're meeting Victoria for lunch, a monthly tradition they've maintained since Emma's first birthday. Victoria has been promoted to senior agent and leads a task force investigating human trafficking operations throughout Southern California. Rebecca's consulting business has expanded to include crisis management for women leaving abusive relationships, work that feels both personally meaningful and professionally challenging. Emma spots Victoria entering the restaurant and squeals with delight, breaking free from Rebecca's hand to run toward her aunt. Victoria scoops her up easily, spinning her around as Emma giggles. "How's my favorite federal agent in training?" Victoria asks, settling Emma in her high chair. "I practiced my escape knots this morning," Emma announces proudly. "Mommy says I'm getting very good at untying things." Rebecca shakes her head ruefully. "She figured out how to get out of her car seat last week. I found her standing on the back seat while I was driving, completely proud of herself." "That's my girl," Victoria says approvingly. "Always have an exit strategy." They order lunch from a menu that features organic, locally sourced ingredients instead of the expensive imported items Romano's used to serve. The new owners have turned it into exactly the kind of place Rebecca wishes had existed when she was married to Harrison: comfortable, family-friendly, and completely transparent about its business practices. "Any word from Harrison?" Victoria asks carefully. It's a question she poses every few months, mainly to stay informed about potential security concerns. "His attorney filed another appeal, but it was denied," Rebecca replies. 25 years without parole, and he's already served 2. He'll be in his late 60s when he gets out, assuming he serves his full sentence. Emma, who has been listening to adult conversation with the intensity she brings to everything, speaks up. "Is that the man who made bad choices?" Rebecca and Victoria exchange glances. They've been honest with Emma about her father in age-appropriate ways, explaining that he made decisions that hurt people and had to face consequences for those actions. "Yes, a sweetheart," Rebecca says. "That's him. Will he want to meet me someday?" It's a question Rebecca has been dreading and preparing for since Emma was born. "I don't know. If he does, and if you want to meet him when you're older, we'll figure it out together. But that's a long way in the future." Emma nods seriously, already moving on to more immediately interesting topics like why her grilled cheese sandwich is cut into triangles instead of rectangles. After lunch, where they walk along the Santa Monica Pier, Emma running ahead to examine seagulls and street performers, while Rebecca and Victoria follow at a more sedate pace. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been undercover at Romano's that night?" Rebecca asks. Victoria considers the question. "You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe not that night, maybe not in time to photograph all his records, but you would have discovered who Harrison really was. You're too smart to stay fooled forever. I was fooled for 4 years. You were trusting. That's different than being fooled. Harrison was very good at manipulation and control. He isolated you from friends and family. made you financially dependent, monitored your activities. Classic abuse patterns that even intelligent women can fall into. Rebecca watches Emma attempt to feed French fries to a seagull, despite being told repeatedly that wild birds shouldn't eat human food. Her daughter has inherited her own stubborn streak along with Victoria's disregard for rules she doesn't think make sense. I'm grateful it happened the way it did, Rebecca says finally. Meeting you again, Emma getting to know her aunt. Building a life that's actually ours instead of one built on lies. Even though it involved getting drinks thrown at you by your husband's mistress, Rebecca laughs, especially because of that. If Sloane hadn't thrown that drink, you might never have broken protocol to help me. Emma might have grown up with a father in prison and no extended family. Instead, she has the most devoted aunt in the world and more security than most federal witnesses. It's true, Victoria has trained Emma in basic safety measures from the time she could walk, how to dial 911, how to hide in emergencies, how to run away from strangers who approach her. Emma thinks these are games, but they're also skills that might someday save her life. Rebecca has also learned advanced self-defense, improved her marksmanship, and developed a security mindset that would impress professional bodyguards. She carries herself differently now, alert, confident, ready for trouble even when she's not expecting it. We should head back, Victoria says, checking her watch. I have a briefing at 4 about a new case. Emma protests being dragged away from the pier, but cheers up when Victoria promises to take her to the beach on the weekend. They drive back to Rebecca's apartment in comfortable silence, Emma falling asleep in her car seat despite her earlier protests about being tired. At home, Rebecca works on client proposals while Emma naps and Victoria reviews case files at the kitchen table. It's a domestic scene that none of them could have imagined 3 years ago, a single mother, a federal agent, and a toddler who already shows signs of inheriting the family tradition of being impossible to intimidate. Rebecca's phone rings with a call from a potential client, a woman whose wealthy husband has been arrested for fraud. The details are depressingly familiar: isolation, financial control, elaborate lies told by a charming man who seemed too good to be true. I can help you, Rebecca tells the woman. I've been exactly where you are now. The most important thing to remember is that you're stronger than you think, and you don't have to face this alone. After the call, Victoria looks up from her files. Another one. Another one, Rebecca confirms. Sometimes I think every wealthy man in Los Angeles has a secret criminal enterprise and a wife who has no idea what he's really doing. Not every wealthy man, Victoria corrects, but enough of them to keep you in business. They work in comfortable silence until Emma wakes up demanding snacks and attention. The rest of the evening passes in the routine they've established: dinner together, bath time, stories, and bedtime for Emma, followed by adult conversation and planning for the next day. It's an ordinary life in many ways, but built on extraordinary circumstances. Two sisters who found each other through crime and federal investigations. A child whose existence helped expose her father's criminal activities. A family created by choice rather than birth, held together by loyalty rather than legal obligations. As Rebecca tucks Emma into bed, her daughter asks the question she's been asking lately. Will you and Aunt Tori always live near each other? Always, Rebecca promises. We're family, and family stays together. Even when I grow up, especially when you grow up, you'll need your aunt to teach you how to be strong and brave like she is. Emma considers this seriously. Will I be a police officer like Aunt Tori? You can be anything you want to be, Rebecca says. Police officer, doctor, teacher, business owner. The important thing is that you choose something that helps people and makes you proud. Like what you do now, like what I do now, Rebecca agrees. After Emma falls asleep, Rebecca finds Victoria on the balcony overlooking the ocean, talking quietly on her encrypted phone about case details she can't share. When the call ends, they sit together watching the waves and thinking about how much has changed since that night at Romano's restaurant. Do you think Emma will want to know more about Harrison when she gets older? Victoria asks. Probably, Rebecca replies. Kids are naturally curious about their origins, but by the time she's old enough to ask difficult questions, she'll also be old enough to understand difficult answers, and she'll have us to help her process whatever she learns. That's the most important part, Rebecca agrees. She'll never be alone with the truth, whatever it turns out to be. They sit in comfortable silence. Two women who've built something good from circumstances that could have destroyed them. Emma sleeps peacefully inside, dreaming whatever dreams two-year-olds dream, probably involving seagulls and escape knots and ants who know how to make the world safe. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, cases to solve, clients to help, a toddler to chase around the apartment. But tonight, everything is exactly as it should be. The Carter women have built a life worth protecting, and they've proven, repeatedly, that they're very good at protecting what matters to them. 5 years have passed since the night that changed everything. Emma Victoria Carter, now 7 years old, sits in the passenger seat of Rebecca's Honda Accord, her backpack full of second-grade homework and her head full of questions about the world. "Why can't I come to your meeting today?" Emma asks as they drive through downtown Los Angeles traffic. "Because it's grown-up business," Rebecca explains patiently. "Sometimes adults need to talk about difficult things without kids around." "Is it about bad people like my father?" Rebecca's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Emma's questions about Harrison have become more sophisticated as she's gotten older, and Rebecca has tried to answer them honestly while protecting her daughter's emotional well-being. "It's about helping someone whose husband made bad choices?" "Yes," Rebecca confirms. "Like I help all my clients." Emma nods seriously. At 7, she already understands more about the world than most children her age. Victoria has taught her about personal safety. Rebecca has explained concepts like lying and manipulation in age-appropriate ways, and Emma has absorbed it all with the same fierce intelligence that characterizes everything she does. Rebecca drops Emma off at Victoria's apartment, where her sister will work from home for the afternoon while keeping an eye on her niece. Victoria's promotion to assistant director of the Los Angeles field office has given her more flexibility in her schedule, and she uses it to be present for Emma whenever possible. "Be good for Aunt Tori," Rebecca instructs as Emma bounces out of the car. "I'm always good," Emma replies with a grin that suggests the opposite. Victoria appears in the doorway of her building, dressed in casual clothes instead of her usual professional attire. "How's my favorite troublemaker? Ready to practice lockpicking?" Emma announces. "You said we could work on the advanced techniques today." Rebecca shakes her head as she drives away. Other 7-year-olds play with dolls and video games. Emma practices escape techniques and studies federal law enforcement procedures. It's not exactly a normal childhood, but then again, nothing about Emma's family has ever been normal. Rebecca's afternoon client is Maria Santos, a 43-year-old woman whose tech executive husband was arrested 3 weeks ago for embezzling funds from his company's charity foundation. The details are painfully familiar. A charming, successful man who presented a perfect public image while committing serious crimes behind the scenes. "I keep thinking I should have known," Maria says, tears streaming down her face as they sit in Rebecca's downtown office. "There must have been signs I ignored." "There probably were signs," Rebecca agrees gently. "But that doesn't make any of this your fault. These men are experts at compartmentalization and manipulation. They're very good at hiding their true activities from the people closest to them." Maria's situation is complicated by the fact that she co-owns several properties with her husband, and her name is on some of the accounts he used for his embezzlement scheme. She's facing potential criminal charges despite having no knowledge of his activities. "The FBI wants me to testify against him," Maria continues, "but he's still my children's father. How do I destroy their dad to save myself?" Rebecca leans forward, her voice gentle but firm. "You're not destroying him. He destroyed himself with his choices. You're protecting your children from growing up thinking that criminal behavior is acceptable." It's a conversation Rebecca has had with dozens of women over the past 5 years. Her reputation for understanding these specific circumstances has made her one of the most sought-after crisis management consultants in Southern California. "What did you tell your daughter about her father?" Maria asks. Rebecca considers her answer carefully. "I told her the truth in age-appropriate ways, that he made choices that hurt people, that he had to face consequences for those choices, and that sometimes people we love disappoint us. But I also told her that his bad choices don't reflect on her, and that she has people in her life who will always choose to do the right thing. Does she want to see him? She's asked about it a few times. I've told her that if she decides she wants to meet him when she's older, we'll figure out how to do that safely. But I won't force a relationship, and I won't lie to her about who he is." Maria nods, taking notes on Rebecca's advice about legal representation, financial planning, and emotional support resources. By the end of their 2-hour session, she has a concrete plan for protecting herself and her children while cooperating with federal investigators. "Thank you," Maria says as they wrap up. "I feel like I can actually survive this now." "You can do more than survive it," Rebecca assures her. "You can build something better on the other side of it." After Maria leaves, Rebecca reviews her notes and sends follow-up emails to attorneys and counselors she's recommended. Her client base has grown to include women from all over the country, many of whom seek her services specifically because of her personal experience with high-profile criminal cases. Her phone rings with a call from Victoria. "Emergency pickup needed. Your daughter decided to test her lock-picking skills on Mrs. Patterson's apartment door." Rebecca groans. Mrs. Patterson is Victoria's elderly neighbor, a retired teacher who's been very patient with Emma's various adventures. "Is she in trouble?" "Not exactly. Mrs. Patterson was locked out and couldn't reach the building manager. Emma got her door open in about 30 seconds. Now Mrs. Patterson wants to hire her as a personal security consultant." "That's my daughter," Rebecca says with a mixture of pride and exasperation. "Using her powers for good, even when she's technically breaking rules." She drives back to Victoria's apartment to find Emma demonstrating proper lock-picking technique to Mrs. Patterson while Victoria watches with barely concealed amusement. "Emma Victoria Carter," Rebecca says in her most serious mom voice, "we need to talk about appropriate uses of federal-level security skills." "But I helped Mrs. Patterson," Emma protests. "Aunt Tori says helping people is always the right choice." "Aunt Tori also says we need to get permission before picking locks," Victoria adds. "Even when we're helping," Emma considers this seriously. "So next time I should ask first. Next time you should come get an adult," Rebecca corrects. "Lock-picking is for emergencies only." They walk back to Victoria's apartment, where Emma immediately launches into a detailed explanation of the advanced techniques Victoria has been teaching her. At 7 years old, she can defeat most standard locks, has memorized the floor plans of their apartment building, and knows 3 different escape routes from any location she visits regularly. "Is this normal?" Rebecca asks Victoria quietly as Emma practices knots in the living room. "For our family, absolutely," Victoria replies. "For most families, probably not. But Emma isn't most kids. She's growing up knowing that the world can be dangerous, but also knowing that she has the skills and support to handle whatever comes her way." That evening, they have dinner together as they do most nights when Victoria doesn't have evening surveillance operations. Emma chatters about her day at school, her homework assignments, and her plans for the weekend. "Can we go back to Romano's restaurant this weekend?" Emma asks. "I want to see if I remember where everything happened." Rebecca and Victoria exchange glances. Emma has asked to visit Romano's several times, fascinated by the idea that such an ordinary place was the setting for such dramatic events. "Why do you want to go there?" Rebecca asks. "Because that's where you and Aunt Tori became a team," Emma says matter-of-factly. "I want to see the place where our real family started." It's a surprisingly sophisticated observation from a 7-year-old. Emma understands that her biological family includes Harrison, but she also understands that her real family, the people who actually protect and love her, consists of Rebecca and Victoria. "We can go to Romano's," Rebecca agrees. "But remember, it looks completely different now." "I know," Emma says, "but the important part isn't how it looks. The important part is what happened there." Later, after Emma is asleep, Rebecca and Victoria sit on the balcony with glasses of wine, talking about their daughter's emotional and intellectual development. "She's going to be formidable when she grows up," Victoria observes. "Smart, resourceful, completely fearless. The world better be ready for Emma Carter." "I worry sometimes that we're raising her to be too suspicious of people," Rebecca admits. "She analyzes everyone she meets like they might be potential threats." "Better suspicious and alive than trusting and dead," Victoria replies pragmatically. "She'll learn to calibrate her responses as she gets older, but the foundation of awareness and preparedness will serve her well." Rebecca nods. Knowing Victoria is right, Emma is growing up with skills and knowledge that most children never acquire. But she's also growing up with the absolute certainty that she's loved and protected. "Do you think we'll ever have a completely normal life?" Rebecca asks. Victoria considers the question seriously. I think this is our normal, single mom, federal agent aunt, precocious kid who can pick locks and identify escape routes. It works for us. It does work, Rebecca agrees. Better than any family I could have imagined when I was married to Harrison. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the lights of Los Angeles spread out below them. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, cases to solve, clients to help, a 7-year-old to educate about the balance between preparedness and paranoia. But tonight, everything is as it should be. The Carter women have built something good from circumstances that could have destroyed them. They've created a family based on choice and loyalty, rather than genetics and legal obligations. And Emma Victoria Carter is growing up knowing that family means showing up, that strength comes from truth, and that the most dangerous people in the world are women who've decided to protect the ones they love. Some lessons are worth passing on to the next generation, especially when that generation shows every sign of being ready to carry on the family tradition of refusing to be intimidated by anyone. 10 years have passed since the night at Romano's restaurant. Emma Victoria Carter, now 17 years old and a senior at Santa Monica High School, sits in the visiting room of Terminal Island Federal Correctional Institution, studying the man across from her with the same analytical intensity she brings to everything. Harrison Carter, her biological father, looks older than his 52 years. Prison has aged him in ways that have nothing to do with time. His hair is completely gray, his face lined with stress and regret, and his once confident bearing has been replaced by the careful posture of someone who's learned to avoid attention. "You look like your mother," he says, his voice hoarse with emotion. "But you have my eyes." Emma doesn't respond immediately. She spent months preparing for this meeting, working with Rebecca and Victoria to decide what questions she wanted to ask and how to protect herself emotionally from whatever answers she received. "I have Rebecca's eyes," Emma corrects quietly. "She's the one who raised me. You're just the man who contributed genetic material and then tried to have me and my mother killed." Harrison flinches as if she'd slapped him. "That's not what happened. I never wanted to hurt you or Rebecca. I was trying to protect. You were trying to protect your criminal operation?" Emma interrupts. "I've read the court transcripts, the FBI files, the testimony transcripts. I know exactly what you were trying to protect." It's true. Emma has spent her junior year researching her father's case as part of an independent study project on white-collar crime and its impact on families. Her government teacher, unaware of her personal connection to the material, praised her analytical approach and emotional detachment. Rebecca sits beside Emma, her hand resting supportively on her daughter's arm. Victoria is positioned near the door, her federal credentials having gained them access to this meeting, and her presence providing security. None of them entirely trust the prison staff. "Why did you want to see me?" Harrison asks Emma directly. "Because I'm 17 years old, and in 8 months I'll be legally an adult. I wanted to meet you before I made decisions about whether to have any relationship with you going forward." Emma's voice is steady, professional, completely controlled. She sounds like a prosecutor questioning a witness rather than a daughter meeting her father for the first time. "And what have you decided?" Harrison asks. Emma studies him for a long moment before answering. "You're not what I expected." "Hanmeim." "What did you expect?" "A monster," Emma replies honestly. "Someone who looked evil, who radiated danger. Instead, you look like a sad old man who made terrible choices and destroyed his own life." Harrison's eyes fill with tears. "I made mistakes." "You didn't make mistakes," Emma corrects him firmly. "Mistakes are accidental. You made deliberate choices to commit crimes, to launder money for drug cartels, to have people murdered when they threatened your operation. Those weren't mistakes. Those were moral failures." Rebecca watches her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Emma has inherited Harrison's analytical intelligence and Rebecca's emotional strength, but she's also developed a hardness that sometimes worries her mother. "Do you hate me?" Harrison asks quietly. Emma considers the question with the same seriousness she brings to everything. "No. Hatred requires emotional investment, and I don't have any emotional investment in you. You're a stranger who happens to share some of my DNA. You're my daughter." "I'm Rebecca Carter's daughter," Emma replies. "I'm Victoria Martinez's niece. You're just a convicted felon who used to be married to my mother." Harrison looks at Rebecca desperately. Please help me explain to her that I loved you both, that everything I did was to provide for our family. Rebecca's voice is calm but final. Emma understands exactly what you did and why you did it. She spent years studying your case files. Harrison, she knows that your providing for the family involved laundering money for organizations that destroy communities with drugs. She knows that when I discovered your crimes, your first instinct was to have me killed rather than face the consequences of your actions. Emma nods, her expression unchanged. I also know that you had multiple opportunities to walk away from criminal activity, but you chose not to because the money was too good. I know that you isolated my mother from her friends and family to maintain control over her. And I know that if Aunt Victoria hadn't been undercover at Romano's that night, you probably would have succeeded in having both of us murdered. Harrison slumps in his chair, the weight of his daughter's analytical assessment crushing whatever hope he'd held for this meeting. I never wanted any of this to happen, but you made choices that made it inevitable, Emma replies. That's the difference between accepting responsibility and making excuses. Victoria speaks for the first time since the meeting began. Emma, do you have any other questions for him? Emma consults a notebook she's brought with her, filled with careful handwriting. I want to know about your family medical history, genetic conditions, hereditary diseases, anything I should be aware of for my own health planning. The clinical nature of the request seems to hit Harrison harder than any of her previous statements. His daughter isn't interested in building a relationship or understanding his motivations. She's treating him like a source of practical information. Heart disease runs in my family, he says quietly. My father died of a heart attack at 65. My mother had diabetes. There's some history of depression and anxiety disorders. Emma writes it all down methodically. What about your parents' families, grandparents, aunts, uncles? Harrison provides what information he can remember. Watching his daughter take notes like she's conducting a medical intake interview, when she's satisfied with the genetic information. Emma closes her notebook. I think I'm done here, she announces. Wait, Harrison says desperately. Please, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I think about you and your mother every day, that I'm sorry for the pain I caused, that if I could go back and make different choices. But you can't go back, Emma interrupts. And even if you could, I'm not sure you would make different choices. You'd probably just try to be more careful about not getting caught. The assessment is delivered without cruelty, but with the kind of clinical precision that makes it devastating. Rebecca stands, indicating that the visit is over. Emma has what she came for. There's no need to prolong this. As they prepare to leave, Harrison makes one final desperate attempt. Emma, please, don't completely shut the door on having some kind of relationship with me. I know I don't deserve it. But Emma turns back to face him, and for the first time, her composed mask slips slightly. You want to know the truth, the whole truth? Harrison nods eagerly. I don't need a relationship with you because I already have everything a father is supposed to provide. Rebecca taught me about integrity and strength. Victoria taught me about courage and justice. Between them, I learned everything about being a good person that I could ever need to know. She pauses, studying his face with those analytical eyes that are indeed so much like his own. You contributed some genetic material 17 years ago, but you've never been my father in any way that matters. And at this point, you never will be. Emma turns and walks toward the door without looking back. Rebecca follows after a moment, but Victoria lingers long enough to deliver her own message to Harrison. She's remarkable, isn't she? Victoria says quietly. Smart, strong, completely unafraid of difficult truths. Everything you could have hoped for in a daughter, if you'd been the kind of man who deserved to raise her. Harrison looks up at her with broken eyes. Will she ever? No, Victoria says simply. She won't. Emma Carter has built her life on a foundation of truth and integrity. You represent everything she stands against. This was her giving you closure, not opening a door. Victoria leaves Harrison alone in the visiting room, a man who finally understands the true cost of the choices he made. He lost more than his freedom and his fortune. He lost the chance to know the extraordinary young woman his daughter has become. In the parking lot outside the prison, Rebecca and Victoria watch Emma decompress from the emotional intensity of the meeting. She sits on a bench in the sunshine, writing in her notebook and processing what she's experienced. How do you feel? Rebecca asks gently. Satisfied, Emma replies after considering the question. I wanted to see him for myself, to understand who he really was, rather than relying on other people's descriptions. Now I know. And what do you know? That he's exactly what I expected him to be once I got past the physical appearance. A narcissist who still doesn't really understand why his choices were wrong. Someone who thinks saying I'm sorry should erase the consequences of his actions. Emma closes her notebook and looks at her mother and aunt, the two women who raised her, who taught her right from wrong, who showed her what real strength looks like. I also know how incredibly lucky I am, she continues. Most kids don't get to choose their family. I got the best possible family by accident of circumstances. Rebecca and Victoria exchange glances over Emma's head, both thinking the same thing. Their 17-year-old daughter-niece has more emotional maturity and moral clarity than most adults ever achieve. Ready to go home? Victoria asks. Ready, Emma confirms, standing and shouldering her backpack. I have homework to finish, and I want to call the admissions office at Stanford about my criminal justice program application. As they drive back to Los Angeles, Emma talks about her plans for college and her eventual career in federal law enforcement. She wants to follow in Victoria's footsteps, but with a focus on financial crimes and victim advocacy. I want to help people like Maria Santos and all your other clients, Emma explains, women who get caught up in their husband's criminal activities and need someone who understands exactly what they're going through. Rebecca nods approvingly. That's important work, and you'd be excellent at it. I had excellent teachers, Emma replies simply. That evening, they have dinner together as they do most nights when Victoria's work schedule permits. Emma has returned to her normal cheerful demeanor, the clinical composure of the prison visit replaced by typical teenage energy as she talks about school, friends, and her upcoming graduation. Do you regret meeting him? Victoria asks as they clean up after dinner. Emma considers the question seriously, as she considers everything seriously. No. I needed to see him to understand that I wasn't missing anything important by not having him in my life. Sometimes you need proof that you made the right choice. Later that night, Rebecca finds Emma on her bedroom balcony, looking out at the ocean and writing in her journal. What you thinking about? Rebecca asks, settling into the chair beside her daughter. How different my life would have been if you'd never found out about Harrison's crimes, Emma replies. If I'd grown up thinking he was just a successful businessman, instead of knowing the truth about what he really was, do you think you would have been happier not knowing? Emma shakes her head immediately. No way, living a lie isn't living at all. Besides, if I hadn't grown up knowing the truth, I might have become the kind of person who could be fooled by someone like him. Rebecca smiles, recognizing her own hard-won wisdom in her daughter's words. That's very wise. I learned from the best, Emma replies, echoing words Rebecca once said to Victoria. As they sit together watching the waves, Rebecca reflects on the journey that brought them to this moment. 10 years ago, she was a terrified pregnant woman whose world had exploded in a single night. Now she's the mother of an extraordinary young woman who faces difficult truths with courage and grace. Emma Victoria Carter is everything her biological father could have been proud of if he'd been capable of recognizing true strength and integrity. Instead, she's become everything her chosen family hoped she would be: smart, strong, compassionate, and completely uncompromising when it comes to doing what's right. The Carter women have built something lasting from circumstances that could have destroyed them. And the next generation is ready to carry on the family tradition of refusing to be intimidated, refusing to accept lies, and always showing up for the people who matter. Some legacies are worth continuing, others are worth leaving behind forever. Emma has made her choice about which is which. 20 years have passed since that life-changing night at Romano's restaurant. Emma Victoria Carter, now 37 years old and one of the FBI's youngest assistant directors, stands in the same courthouse where her father was sentenced decades ago. But today, she's not here as the daughter of a convicted felon. She's here as the lead prosecutor in the largest financial crimes case in California history. Rebecca, now 50, sits in the gallery watching her daughter present evidence against a technology executive who used his company to launder money for international criminal organizations. The parallels to Harrison's case are striking, but Emma's role has completely reversed. Instead of being the victim's family member, she's the federal agent bringing criminals to justice. The defendant established a sophisticated network of shell companies and offshore accounts. Emma tells the jury, her voice carrying the same analytical precision she displayed as a teenager. Over the course of 5 years, he laundered $400 million in proceeds from human trafficking, drug trafficking, and weapons sales. Victoria, now 58 and recently retired from active field work to focus on training new agents, watches from the back of the courtroom with obvious pride. Emma has exceeded even Victoria's ambitious expectations, rising through the ranks of federal law enforcement with a combination of brilliant analytical skills and absolute moral clarity. The defendant in this case, Robert Morrison, CEO of Morrison Digital Solutions, bears an uncomfortable resemblance to Harrison Carter. Handsome, charismatic, married to a woman who claimed complete ignorance of his criminal activities. His wife, Jennifer Morrison, had contacted Rebecca's consulting firm 6 months ago, desperate for help navigating the same nightmare Rebecca had lived through decades earlier. Mrs. Morrison, Emma continues, addressing the jury, was completely unaware of her husband's criminal activities. Like many spouses of white-collar criminals, she was deliberately kept in the dark about the true source of their wealth. The evidence will show that Mr. Morrison went to extraordinary lengths to hide his crimes from his family, including sophisticated financial structures designed specifically to provide plausible deniability for his wife and children. Rebecca thinks about the conversation she'd had with Jennifer Morrison during their first consultation. The same shocked disbelief, the same desperate questions about how she could have missed the signs, the same guilt about living off money that came from other people's suffering. "I keep thinking I should have known," Jennifer had said, echoing the words of dozens of Rebecca's clients over the years. What kind of wife doesn't know her husband is a criminal? The kind of wife married to a man who's very good at lying, Rebecca had replied. These men are experts at compartmentalization. They create completely separate worlds for their criminal activities and their family lives. The trial has been going on for 3 weeks, with Emma methodically presenting evidence that traces Morrison's money laundering operation through a network of businesses and financial institutions. Her preparation is exhaustive, her presentation flawless, and her cross-examination of witnesses devastating. The defense wants you to believe that Mr. Morrison was simply a successful businessman who made some questionable decisions, Emma tells the jury in her closing argument. But the evidence shows something very different. It shows a man who built his entire lifestyle on money stolen from victims of some of the worst crimes imaginable. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms dealing. Every dollar Mr. Morrison laundered represents someone's suffering, someone's exploitation, someone's death. Rebecca watches her daughter and feels the complex mixture of pride and sadness that's characterized her relationship with Emma's career choice. Pride because Emma has become everything Rebecca hoped she would be: strong, principled, dedicated to justice. Sadness because Emma's childhood shaped her into someone who sees the world primarily in terms of criminals and victims, predators and prey. The jury deliberates for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Robert Morrison will spend the rest of his life in federal prison, just like Harrison Carter. His assets will be seized and distributed to victim compensation funds. His family will rebuild their lives from nothing, just like Rebecca did 20 years ago. After the verdict, Emma finds Rebecca and Victoria in the courthouse lobby. Despite her professional success, she still seeks out her mother and aunt after every major case, needing their presence to process what she's experienced. "How do you feel?" Rebecca asks, the same question she's been asking Emma after difficult situations since she was a child. "Satisfied," Emma replies, using the same words she'd used after visiting Harrison in prison 20 years ago. Another criminal off the streets, another money laundering operation shut down. The families of trafficking victims will receive some compensation from Morrison's seized assets. "And Jennifer Morrison?" Victoria asks. "Will be fine," Emma says with certainty. "She has Rebecca to guide her through the process. She'll rebuild her life just like you did, Mom, maybe even stronger than before." They walk out of the courthouse together, 3 generations of the Carter family united by their shared understanding of how quickly a life can change and how important it is to have people who show up when your world falls apart. Emma has never married, though she's had several serious relationships over the years. Her work demands too much time and emotional energy for the kind of compromise that marriage requires. She's also admitted privately to Rebecca and Victoria that she has trust issues when it comes to men, particularly successful men who might have hidden agendas. I know it's probably connected to Harrison, Emma had said during one of their regular family dinners, but I can't seem to get past the feeling that any man who seems too good to be true probably is hiding something terrible. That's not necessarily a bad instinct in your line of work, Victoria had replied. Trust your gut. It's kept our family safe for 2 decades. Emma has channeled her relationship energy into her work and her extended family instead. She's helped put hundreds of criminals in prison, recovered millions of dollars in stolen assets, and become a mentor to young female agents who want to specialize in financial crimes. As they reach the parking lot, Emma's phone buzzes with a text from Jennifer Morrison. Thank you for everything. The guilty verdict helps me believe that I can rebuild my life. Your mother was right. I'm stronger than I thought. Emma shows the message to Rebecca and Victoria. Another success story. Another woman who discovered she didn't need a criminal millionaire to be happy. Rebecca corrects. They part ways in the parking lot. Victoria heading to the FBI training facility where she now works with new recruits. Emma returning to her office to begin work on her next case, and Rebecca driving home to prepare for her evening client consultations. At home in her Santa Monica apartment, the same one she moved to 20 years ago. Now owned rather than rented and extensively renovated, Rebecca reviews files for her evening appointments. 2 more wives of recently arrested white-collar criminals, both struggling with the same questions and fears she remembers from her own experience. Her business has evolved over the years into a comprehensive support system for families affected by white-collar crime. She employs 3 other consultants, 2 attorneys, a financial planner, and a therapeutic counselor who specializes in trauma recovery. They guide clients through every aspect of rebuilding their lives, from legal strategy to emotional healing to practical considerations like finding new housing and employment. The phone rings with a call from a potential new client, a woman whose hedge fund manager husband was arrested yesterday for running a Ponzi scheme. I saw your interview on the news last year, the woman says, her voice shaking, about how you rebuilt your life after your husband was convicted. I need help. I don't know what to do or where to start. You start by understanding that none of this is your fault, Rebecca says gently, and that you're stronger than you think. I know that's hard to believe right now, but it's true. It's the same conversation Rebecca has had hundreds of times over the past 2 decades, but it never gets old. Every woman she helps represents another victory over the kind of criminal arrogance that Harrison embodied. Every successful rebuilding project proves that wealth built on lies and suffering isn't worth preserving. That evening, Rebecca, Victoria, and Emma have dinner together at Romano's restaurant, a monthly tradition they've maintained for years. The restaurant has thrived under honest management, becoming exactly the kind of family-friendly establishment the neighborhood needed. Emma raises her wine glass in a toast. To family, the kind that chooses to show up. To justice, Victoria adds, even when it takes 20 years to fully achieve. To new beginnings, Rebecca concludes, no matter how old you are when you have to start over. They clink glasses and drink. 3 women who've built something extraordinary from circumstances that could have destroyed them. Emma will continue putting criminals in prison. Victoria will continue training the next generation of federal agents. And Rebecca will continue helping women discover their own strength in the aftermath of betrayal. Outside the restaurant windows, Los Angeles spreads out in all its complicated glory, a city full of dreamers and criminals, victims and survivors, people building empires and people rebuilding lives. The Carter women have found their place in that ecosystem, contributing to justice and healing in their own unique ways. As they finish dinner and prepare to go their separate ways, Emma checks her phone and frowns. I just got a message from the warden at Terminal Island. Harrison Carter died this morning. Heart attack. Rebecca and Victoria both pause, processing this information. Harrison has been a shadow hanging over their family for 20 years, never forgotten but rarely discussed. How do you feel about that? Victoria asks Emma gently. Emma considers the question with her usual analytical approach. I feel nothing. He was a stranger who shared some of my DNA and made choices that hurt people I love. His death doesn't change anything about my life or who I am. Rebecca nods, recognizing her own hard-won wisdom in her daughter's response. That's exactly the right way to feel. He never got to know the amazing woman you became, Victoria adds. That's his loss, not yours. They part ways outside the restaurant, each returning to their own life and work, secure in the knowledge that they have each other no matter what challenges the future might bring. The Carter women have proven, repeatedly, that family isn't about genetics or legal documents. It's about who shows up when your world explodes, who helps you rebuild from the ashes, and who celebrates your victories as if they were their own. Emma Victoria Carter grew up knowing that her biological father was a criminal, but she also grew up knowing that her real family consisted of women who would move heaven and earth to protect her. That knowledge shaped her into someone who protects others, who refuses to be intimidated by wealth or power, and who understands that true strength comes from choosing to do what's right even when it's difficult. 20 years after a drink was thrown at a pregnant woman in a Beverly Hills restaurant, the ripple effects of that moment continue to spread. Hundreds of criminals in prison, millions of dollars returned to victims, dozens of women empowered to rebuild their lives, and one young woman who grew up to become exactly the kind of person the world needs more of. Some stories end with justice served. Others end with the understanding that justice is an ongoing process, carried out by people who refuse to give up or give in. The Carter women carry on,